Okay, now we're moving on to lesson 3. I'm going to kind of start where we left off. I'm going to go over here to the plus sign, this tiny little plus sign. It says song sections, and it's automatically going to be section A, 8 bars. And all that means is that you've divided your song into various sections, and we will use this at some point. For the first couple of weeks, we will not. Just so you know, you can go in and change the number of measures, but we don't want to do that yet because our first song, our first project is actually 8 measures, and it will be a very good idea to leave it like that. Automatic, when you turn that on, it just means it records until you stop recording. Again, we won't be using that for right now. We definitely want to have manual. We want the number to be 8. So I'm going to go back to my song sections. I can add more sections, and again, we will be doing this at some point. So now I have section B, I have section C, etc. I don't need all those sections, so I'm going to just go back if you accidentally add anything and just delete them. So for right now, you're going to end up with section A, 8 bars, and that's it. So I'm going to get out of there. And notice my plus sign there still. And I'm going to show you a couple things that's specifically for the keyboard for the grand piano, but we will go through a couple of things here. There is one symbol that doesn't always show up, and that is this little thing right here. If I make a mistake, if I've played something and I'm like, oh, I don't like that, or if I've accidentally deleted something, which is even worse, the very first thing you do is look at the undo button. That's your undo, and that will save you a lot of time and effort. So anytime you think something's missing, please make sure you hit the undo button first, because you don't want to have to re-record something. Okay, I'm going to go here into the middle. It says grand piano, and I'm still in keyboard, but when I touch the grand piano, it gives me a whole bunch of options. I've got 8 options here, but I've got even more. So I don't have to use a plain old grand piano if I don't want. I can use some of these. Some of them sound very interesting. Some of them, not so much. And we'll get to custom at some point, but for right now, we'll kind of stay out of that. I'm going to go back to keyboards. I'm going to stick on grand piano because for the sake of doing these recordings, it's just the easiest if I stay on the grand piano. But those are some options for you. I'm going to touch just outside of it to get away from it. And again, for the grand piano, we've got all sorts of options. We're going to get into some of these more as you keep playing. But I'm going to go down here. I'm going to just start from the right and go left. I can expand my keyboard. I can make it look like a double set of keys. I'm on a single set. I can make the keys wider or more narrow. If I make them wider, the keys become fatter, which is good because then I have fewer keys to deal with. Maybe that's okay. Or maybe I want to have lots of options. I can make them narrower, and then I can add another set of keys. That's a lot of keys. The upper ones are higher. That might be too many for me to deal with, so I'm just going to go back. I'm going to do a regular set of keys. So now I've got just this normal set of keys like you would see on a piano. Some of these other options we will not use a whole bunch at the beginning. Again, you might play around with this for your free project, but for our first couple of projects, you won't be using any of this. This is kind of fun. Try it out on your own. This we will be using for our second major project. So for right now, just leave that where it is. Just off is fine. Don't need to worry about that. Glissando. If I do scroll, I can move my keyboard around. So I want to get down to the bottom, or I want to go up high. I press it back to glissando, and now when I try to click and drag, the piano stays where it is. Okay, so glissando versus scroll. Scroll means you can actually move the keyboard around. Glissando means you're going to get, it's called a glissando in actual music. There's a sustain button here. This is nice if you want to make longer sounds. So I'm going to move my sustain button over, and now when I play a note, it sustains, it keeps going. If I click that off, it stops immediately. Sometimes I might want this sound, but at other times, maybe I want my sound to be more like this. Totally up to you. Back over here, I can create, you can see there's a number down here. That number keeps going down because I'm making it go down right here. So now I've got some low sounds. If I want to move it back up, you can see the number is now C6. Now they're up high. So this you can move the keys around to different octaves, different high notes or different low notes by using that as well as the scroll button, because the scroll will take you that way too. Okay, this is the end of this lesson for now, and we'll get into our first major project. By the way, save this one if you've recorded anything. Actually, why don't we go ahead and record something? I want to point something out. When you hit the record button, I said hit the record button, 3, 4. There are 4 clicks, and then it starts recording right here. So anything I play right now will record. The idea is to try to get my notes to line up with the clicks. Okay, now you'll see that it turned green and it stopped recording. When it gets to the end of 8, it's going to stop recording because this is set up for only 8 measures, 8 segments, 8 measures of music. So it stops recording at 8 and goes back to the beginning. And I wasn't playing anything at the beginning, that's why there wasn't anything recorded. So why don't you go ahead and just play around. This is going to be your last name P3. We're going to do this as practice 3. So hit the record button, record something. Try to stick with the tempo, the speed of the click. And remember, if you want it faster or slower, you go to the wrench. If you want it faster, you're going to make this number go higher. If you want it slower, you're going to make the number go lower. And then just practice. Try something to the music. Okay.